Hey everyone, school is wrapping up around here, and so my kindergarten graduate, which is exciting, is now home all the time, which I love. Uh, but him and my 3-year-old need to learn how to live in the same space again all day long, so that this first week of summer, we were just kind of surviving, figuring out how we're going to do this, and we've been hitting up the parks a lot. So I've got a park story for you. This is when my oldest Ace was about 3. I think he was 3. Yeah, he was 3. So then I we went to this park. It was super nice. There's this big pond, and then there's this bridge going over this creek or creek, depending on where you're from. And I get made fun of for saying crick because it makes me sound hick, but I say crick. You can say creek. But so anyway, there's this bridge going over the creek, and he would go and he was gathering all these sticks under this tree, and then he would run up to the top of the bridge and throw them over into the water, and then watch them slowly go under the water and watch them go down the stream. Like, this is awesome. This is a great low effort on my part activity, right? So he can get some of the independence that he's been craving because he was 3, and he just, he wants to be with mom, but he wants to do everything himself. So he would run. I hung out at the top of the bridge so that he wouldn't look over too far and go for a swim when we weren't ready for a swim. So he was just going back and forth. He would get all these little sticks, and then he'd come, and then he'd show me and throw them in. And at the time, I've got our, I don't know how old, 6-month-old strapped to me, sleeping or whatever. He was pretty chill when he was a baby. So I'm just hanging out at the top, and then this time Ace goes down, gets a big wad of sticks, and comes up with this huge grin, so cute, and he shows me what he has in his hand, and I'm like, oh, good job, Ace. And then all of a sudden, something fell out of his hand. I look down, it's this wad of dog poop. I'm like, oh, gross. And so I kicked it away, and Ace looked at me like, oh, wow, that's the best part. And so he runs after, and he's trying to pick it up and put it back in the pile, and I'm like, no, buddy, you gotta drop it. And so he like drops everything, and because he's like, what's going on, Mom? And so I kicked it into the water, and he's all offended because I just kicked his prized collection into the water, which I kind of felt bad, but it's dog poop, right? So I'm trying to explain to him, hey, that's real gross. We don't put that in our hand. That should not be something we hold on to. And at first he's like not so happy, but then he just continued, and we moved on with our day. So again, another unexpected turn to casual activity per usual. And so I just remember we were packing up and walking back home because we would walk with a stroller, and I just remember God just speaking into my heart, and I just was asking the question, God, am I like Ace? Like, not physically picking up dog poop, right? But, when I'm showing God this is my life, and I genuinely want to hear from him, like, like, how can I learn to love you more? How can I walk closer with you? That is my deepest desire. And he points out that I'm holding something that is basically dog poop, right, compared to the plans that he has for me and the good things he has for my life. And he's telling me to drop it. And am I, are there things in my life where I am grabbing it real quick and trying to fit it back in my life while I'm also trying to follow Christ? There's just this picture of that doesn't belong in your life, but you've decided that you want it to be a part of your life. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be in Mark 10. You can read the whole story yourself if you want. It starts in verse 17, and it's the rich young man, or the rich young ruler, depending on your version that you're reading. And so there's this rich young man who comes up to Jesus and asks him, what do I need to do to inherit eternal life? And he seems to have good intention, and Jesus starts listing off all these commands, that he would have known in the Bible. He would have known just the laws that they had. And so he lists those off, and the rich young man says, well, I've kept those since I was young. So like, check, and so then that's what we're going to talk about now is in verse 21, is where, and Jesus looking at him, loved him, and said to him, you lack one thing. Go, sell all that you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me." Disheartened by the saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. This part, when you read it, is so tragic, right? Because this young man, he got the answer from Jesus. He could have asked Jesus anything, right? At this point, Jesus is known for healing people and for his wisdom, all of this stuff. And he says, what do I need to do to inherit eternal life? And which is an excellent question, and eager for him to speak into his life. But then the answer, he can't bring himself to do what Jesus has asked him to do, and instead of walking in what he is asked for and what he thought he deeply desired the most, he ends up walking away because he actually desired something else in his life more that he couldn't give up. And Jesus, in this, it says that Jesus, looking at him, loved him, which I love that, because this isn't this picture of Jesus like, oh, here's this thing you're doing wrong, get rid of it and follow me, like frustrated with him. He looked at him and he loved him. He saw his heart, and he saw the entanglements in his heart, and saw what was keeping him from really being able to follow him, right? From living in freedom. And so Jesus, getting right to the point, pointed out, hey, what's entangling your heart from following me is your possessions. And, this passage is not necessarily for everyone to go sell everything you have and give it to the poor. If you feel led to do that, do that. But that's not really what this passage is talking about. This passage is Jesus knowing the heart of this man completely and intimately, and then sharing it with him. And, hey, this is what's holding you back. And Jesus knows each of our hearts. He looks at us. He loves us, right? He died for us because he loves us, so that he can have this relationship with us. He looks at us, he loves us, and he knows our heart completely. He knows what's holding us back. He knows what we keep tripping over and what we decide we need to hold on to. And he's pointing that out and saying, hey, that's dog poop. Get rid of that. Kick it into the creek, and so that you can live in freedom and walk with me and follow me. I just want to talk about this feeling of, he was disheartened or defeated. He went away sorrowful because he had great possessions. When he went up to Jesus, he did not know that this is what Jesus's answer was going to be. I don't think that he would have gone up to him if he, walks away like this. And I want to encourage us to take this time, to just kind of like, Christ, here's my life. I want to follow you. And how do I do that? And when Jesus points something out, we need to be trusting in that Jesus knows what he's talking about, right? When I pointed out, hey, that's dog poop, Ace, get rid of that, he had no idea. He thought that was just really the prized possession that he could put in his pile and would make a good splash that he could watch float down the water. I've had a moment, even just about 6 months ago, and doing this, like, Jesus, I just want to be closer with you. How can I do that? And he brought me to this passage, and I felt like he was saying, it's the things that you have. And it wasn't necessarily like my love for all this stuff that I have. We don't live in this like luxurious mansion and that kind of thing. But I do have a lot of stuff compared to the rest of the world. I have way more clothes than I ever wear, or I just things in closets and in drawers that are just like there, but we don't really use it. And so I did not feel like I had an issue, but I wanted to trust Jesus and walk in it. So I literally went through each room of our house and like, all right, God, like, what do I get rid of? And it was uncomfortable, which showed me, hey, maybe I am too attached to some of this stuff. It's just stuff, and I know that. But like, I got rid of a bunch of clothes, donated, sold some, whatever. And some had holes in them, so I just kind of got rid of them because I don't know why I kept those anyway, but we all had those things, right? So it was like the next hour, like so immediate, when I got rid of stuff, I felt this weight off my shoulders. I felt this light. I don't know. I just felt lighter, and it just felt like this moment of, God, you knew better than I knew. You knew that was, for some reason, that was like clouding me. That was something heavy on me because I had this stuff that I didn't need. And that's not necessarily everyone, right? Everyone's going to be different. The stuff that we drop in, Jesus points out, hey, get rid of that. Whether you have a close relationship with him or not, there's stuff that is in your life that is just not supposed to be there. It could be intense stuff like drugs, alcohol that you've turned to. It could be people pleasing. It could even be falling into the trap of, I want my life to be as painless and convenient as possible, and then I will be the happiest, right? This man, he had this false belief that his happiness was only as strong as his love for the stuff that he had, right? So if he got rid of that stuff, it'd be like him getting rid of his happiness, right? We were very quick to get rid of stuff that does not provide anything for us, right? Or we can see it damaging. But everything that we hold on to, there's a reason for that. And so this man held on to it because it's really hard to let go of something when you don't know what the future looks like without it. Or, if you have fallen into something like people pleasing or drugs, alcohol, hookup culture, whatever it is, that the dog poop that you're holding that you really does not belong in your hands, that you have let become a part of your life. When you have that, it's hard to let go of, because maybe you do remember life without it and how it crept in, and somehow it made life maybe a little better at some point, right? Because you were living life without Christ. Because, that is going to have this empty void. And until you have Christ in your life and you have God speaking into your life and you walk in that, you're going to have that void that you're going to keep trying to fill. But when you don't fill it with Christ, when you fill it with other things, the void just stays. But it just gets bigger and bigger, and you just have to keep filling it. And if you're just stuffing it with things that aren't supposed to be there, you're just going to continue to feel this void. And so that is the tragedy of this rich young man. As he walked away, he had these possessions that were trying to fill the void that Jesus is saying, hey, I want to give you freedom in this. Follow me. My life for you is what you've been created for. That's what you're longing for. And he just could not let go of the one thing that was actually defeating him to be able to walk with Christ. And so we just so easily become like this man when Jesus points at something and he says, drop it. And even sometimes there's things that I have dropped and like, okay, yeah, I get that. Drop it. Okay, well then a little while later, things get tough or lonely, or I just forget. And I pick it back up and I put it back in my pile of my life. And I try to integrate this with Jesus and trying to walk two lives, right? And Jesus is saying, aren't you tired of the stench of this essentially dog poop in light of what he has for you, and the good plans, safe plans he has for you? The plans he has, because when he looks at you, he loves you and he knows you and he knows what you've been created for. So aren't you tired of the stench of the things that you're holding on to that don't belong there? When he is trying to give you freedom, but we do have to drop it. And then, there's this peace when this man walks away because he doesn't feel like he can do it, right? He just feels defeated. He feels disheartened. But he's forgetting, on our own, we're going to fail. We are not going to be able to just drop something once and never look back. Maybe you can. I have yet to meet someone who's been able to do that on their own, because we're just not meant to walk life on our own, in our own power, right? Or this is other videos that we've talked about, in living life with Christ's power that he has given us, that he has died to give us life. And so this man was forgetting. Even Jesus talked about it with his disciples afterwards, because the disciples saw the tragedy of what just happened and started asking him questions. And so then in Mark 10 verse 27, a couple of verses later, it says, Jesus looked at them, his disciples, and said, with man it is impossible, but not with God, for all things are possible with God. This man forgot that he is not supposed to be able to do this on his own. He's supposed to let go and trust that God is going to give him the strength, and that God is going to provide him the wisdom to walk in the environment, to every single thing that he needs in order to let go of this. And I think, we don't know this man, obviously, but even when I was like getting rid of clothes, and I was just kind of like, ooh, that kind of hurts a little bit, because maybe one day I would have worn that, or now I only have 3 outfits that I'm rotating every weekend at church. Someone's going to notice, and nobody cares, one. But also, like, I just needed to trust that God knew what he was doing, and that God was doing it out of love for me, right? And so, it's one thing to show God your life and to say, here's my life, what needs to go. When God points something out, that's going to be hard, because there's a reason it's in there, right? So we don't actually have the freedom in just knowing what it is and like, oh yeah, that's just who I am. That's just what I deal with. This is what I always have to hold on to. No, if Jesus is saying, drop that, I have a better life for you without that, then he's also going to give you the ability to drop that and live life without that. But it's so opposite, right? We don't see freedom as obeying someone else, but the freedom is in obeying Christ, which is so opposite of what we think. But if you think about it, you have this picture of, let's say you have this 50-pound weight chained to one of your legs, chained to your ankle. And you're walking around and dragging that ankle around and have this 50-pound weight. Maybe that's not a lot for you. We can go 100, but I don't think I could lift 100 with one leg. So, adjust it to your strength. But let's say you've got this 50-pound weight on your ankle, and someone who cares about you, a good friend who loves you, looks at you and says, get rid of that. Drop that. Unchain that. It's dragging you down. You will walk so much freer if you get rid of that. We can say, no, this is my life. I want to do what I want to do. I want to walk with this. You can't tell me what to do. Yeah, you can decide that, but you're still walking around with this thing that's dragging you down, that someone knows, hey, I love you. This is why I'm telling you that you got to get rid of it. Our true freedom is going to be obeying that, unchaining that, and now we're just walking, right? We got rid of the thing that was pointed out that we needed to get rid of, and trust that they knew better. And it's hard to trust another person that they know better, but Jesus knows better, right? He knows us. If God created us, then he knows what he created us for. And he also knows what makes us stumble and what things we do chain onto our leg and that we need to get rid of. And so I just wanted to encourage you that, yes, take time. Show your life to Christ. Hey, I want to walk closer with you. What's getting in the way? But then also remember that the freedom is in obeying and letting go. And it's okay to pray, I don't know how to do that, or I've tried this before and it didn't work, or that I have zero interest in doing that because I don't know what life looks like without this. That's why it's in my life. Keep reading. Verse 27, memorize it, repeat it to yourself every hour if you're really trying to walk through this. That with man it's impossible, but not with God. For all things are made possible with God. He can do it. He can walk you through it. So I just want to remind you, we can't save ourselves from ourselves. We can't muster up enough strength, enough willpower to immediately drop what we have and never look back. But with God, we can. with God, all things are possible. And with God, we can walk in the freedom that He has created us to walk in.